Hello, my name is Lindsey Tocco, and welcome to my presentation on gender in sports, fighting for equality 44 years later. Gender in sports has a long history of controversy. Should women be allowed to play the same sports as men? Should they receive equal pay for playing the same sports? Should they be able to hold leadership positions in the male-dominated sports arena? These questions have really been at the forefront of the controversy for many years. My position is that deconstructing the orthodox gender ideology will create a level playing field for equality in the arena of sports. A couple of definitions that I think are important as we view this topic are the orthodox gender ideology, which refers to the beliefs associated with the two-sex classification system, male and female, equality, state of having the same rights, social status, opportunities, pay, and Title IX. I'd be remiss to not mention Title IX in a gender in sports presentation. That really has changed the way women have been able to participate in sports, but I wouldn't call it equal. The two-sex classification and some stereotypes surrounding the classification. Two orthodox categories, male or female. Males are viewed as physically superior, able to play contact sports, and rough and tough. The females are viewed as physically inferior and may only participate in sports with grace and finesse, and that they're too fragile for contact sports. Gender disparities based on traditional stereotypes like these are subtle but damaging. Title IX was monumental in increasing the participation of women in sports, but women still face scrutiny and stereotyping because of social norms, which define these women as being fragile and less capable. Just because Title IX was signed into law doesn't necessarily mean that women are still not being marginalized in the sports arena. I think perhaps the abstract nature of the law, which is left to open interpretation by many, is really what is dictating the confusion and inequality that we still see today. Females were viewed as invaders to the sports that are once considered to be only for men. Women were allowed to participate in artistic activities emphasizing coordination and attractive body lines so that they conform to the emerging ideas and beliefs about femininity at the time in the early of the 20th century. Continuing on stereotypes. This is a picture of Caster Semenya, and she has been the victim of gender testing. Gender identification test, proof of DNA, is what they were looking for because they didn't believe that she was a female. Some female athletes, such as Caster, were born with hormonal levels of that of a male, but are still biologically female. People speculate whether or not she was on steroids or had surgery to reassign gender. In this case, this is her, this is how she was born. And I think this stereotype is really degrading to women. Trying to overcome these barriers is very difficult for them. Another disparity that I'd like to talk about is the disparity in salary. If you take a look at the U.S. national team, the men's and women's teams, the platform for this really is pretty equal in terms of men's sports versus women's sports. And the women's team constantly bring in the same, if not more, revenue and fan base. What was very interesting to me about this slide is that the yearly pay for 20 games, if the women lose all of their games, they receive $72,000. If they win all of their games, they receive $99,000. The men are receiving more money if they lose all of their games than the women winning all of their games. That's really an interesting point to the connection of disparities in the salary. Despite many triumphs and advancement for women in sports and the fact that Title IX was passed 44 years ago, women are still seeking equal treatment. Women emerged on the sports scene prior to Title IX, but not without repeated bouts of resistance, exile, and humiliation. Alternatively, thinking about the larger question of women's equality in sports is that the story is still very much unfolding, and that there is still a huge amount to be done before women and men line up, not just at the same starting line, but live in a society where the goal is providing everyone equal opportunities to reach the finish line. And these are my concluding points. I personally think it's disappointing that we're still having this conversation and that there's still so much work to do. The pay disparities we talked about with the women's national team and the men's national team. Gender testing is humiliating and degrading. And I truly believe that women still need the opportunity for equal pay, media coverage, sports scholarships, and I feel like we still have a long way to go. So that leads into my discussion points. And so I'm offering to you some points that you can respond to. How can you promote gender fairness and equality in sport? How can you stop or help break the cycle of stereotypes related to the orthodox gender ideology in your current profession? I really appreciate that there are so many different professions and people from different walks of life, and so I think it's very interesting that we look through your lens as you offer your information as a professional. You could also complete the Circle of Viewpoints thinking routine, which is from a visible thinking project out of the University of Harvard, and it's also what I use as an elementary physical education teacher. So I would have my students do this, and I would pose the question to them that looking through the lens or looking through gender and sports from the viewpoint of, and then they would choose someone to step inside their shoes. So it could be a woman or a man, board of directors, managers, owners, etc. So you pick that one perspective and share what you think that the viewpoint from that side is. I know what my one side is, and I'm coming from an elementary physical education teaching standpoint and obviously a woman, and so I think it's important that we step inside and take a critical look through the viewpoints of others. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to reading your discussion posts.